Hi, my name is Mike Rutkowski, estate planning and elder law attorney here at the Rutkowski Law Firm. What are you doing in here?
Hey Dad, you're in my chair.
In your chair? I'm not giving up my chair.
Welcome to the Rutkowski Law Firm.
Hello, welcome back to Life Lessons with Mike Rutkowski as we continue to understand trusts and how they work. So we talked previously in a few other episodes on the fact that there are over 60 trusts that you could have, how they are more important than a will and will keep you out of probate, unlike just having a will. And so today we want to sort of walk you through how they even work. Mike, welcome back.
It's a question we get all the time. Of like, why does a trust avoid the probate court, right? It's like, okay, there's these tools, there's wills, there's trust. Will has to go through probate, trust doesn't, but why? Like, what's the mechanism? What's the legal mechanism that makes this avoid the probate court? It's not like someone just said, those don't go to probate, these do. There's a reason why. And so, a will, I say this all the time, a will is just like evidence that you're providing to a judge as to how you want your stuff to be distributed when you pass. That's what a will is. A trust is like a business entity you create, a legal binding contract where you create this other entity that's not yourself. So it's like creating a business, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to put all your stuff in that trust, so in that business. But the beauty is you're the CEO of the business. So this contract, this trust is going to actually hold your assets, and it's got all these rules, the rules that you create. There's going to be rules that say when this person is unable to make decisions for themselves, all these things are supposed to happen. Essentially, a successor trustee is going to come in and provide for that person. That person is typically called the grantor, just to throw some fancy terms in there. But so the grantor, the person who creates the trust, is going to put all these rules in place that say, when I can't make decisions for myself, this is the person who's going to make those decisions, but typically all these assets are still for my benefit. Then there's going to be also another set of rules in this trust agreement, like a business, right? That says, if I pass away, now here's what's happened. So there's this triggering event of death of the grantor that says, when this person passes away, give everything in this trust to these three people, or whatever you want to happen, to your kids, to your spouse, however you want it to flow. In this trust agreement is all those things. So how it avoids probate is, it's not you that owns the assets, it's this trust. And the trust doesn't die. The trust rules just change when certain events happen. When someone becomes incapacitated, when they pass away, they never actually, the trust doesn't actually pass away. The human individual does.
You have to go through the government and create what's called an EIN, and then you get this sort of fancy number that then ties all the assets to that number, right? So how does this work with a trust? Are you basically doing the same thing where you have to create an outside entity that's tied to the government with a specific number? Like, what's the... it feels like right now it's just paperwork. So how do you get it from just being paperwork to being a thing?
It's just this really expensive stack of paper. Right. So what's unique about trusts is you don't have to, they allow you to use the grantor's social security number during their lifetime. So it just flows through to as you personally own it while you're alive. But once that triggering event happens where the grantor, the person who created the trust, dies, okay, there's also something in the trust that says now this becomes irrevocable. You can't change any of the terms after the grantor passes. That's when we need that EIN number. That's going to tie it to the government, taxes, the IRS. There's a separate filing that needs to be done after someone passes away. But during someone's lifetime for a revocable living trust, you do not need a separate tax ID. You just run it under your social security number. After you pass, you get a tax ID. You do a separate filing when you...
Right. And then once it's distributed to those folks who have their own social security numbers. So then the EIN becomes... Okay. And then so the bank, so do you need to open up a separate bank account then that's then tied to that trust and social and EIN that the assets go into?
So very similar. So during someone's lifetime, depending on the trust, we want everything to flow through the trust at death 100%. So what that means is with a revocable living trust, we could either retitle it into the name of the trust, or we could have the beneficiary designation on a bank account or something like that happen so that when you pass away, it goes into the trust. We need to make sure with revocable living trusts that everything is in that trust when you pass away. For irrevocable trusts, you have to retitle everything into the trust during your lifetime. Just a little nuance there. But at the end of the day, just like you were mentioning with a business, when you pass away, everything goes into the trust. You need to open a trust account at a bank with that EIN number. Then from there, it's trust administration making those distributions. So yes, after you pass away, create an EIN number, open a bank account in the name of the trust.
Okay. So if you open a trust, and you want a trust for your estate plan to make sure that you avoid probate, then there are going to be it sounds like there's a bit of a balancing act between working with an estate planner like yourself, as well as needing some sort of tax guidance. Do you need like a CPA involved in this process? How does...
I don't think I'd scare anyone to say that you have to use a CPA, but it's always helpful with this tax stuff. I'm sure, and I don't have any personal experience with this, I'm sure in something like TurboTax or whoever does their own taxes with software, there's some selection like, is there a trust? Do you have a trust? What kind of trust? All of those things. So, I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary. Just like doing estate planning, it's not absolutely necessary to use an estate planning attorney.
Recommended.
But if you want to make sure it's done right.
How setting up a trust works and funding it. Is there anything else that people should be aware of?
Just that funding is an incredibly important part of all of this. Even sometimes when you work with attorneys, they don't help necessarily with funding. Sometimes the attorneys will just do the legal paperwork and say, client, it's now on you to go do the funding. So just, I think a good checkup every 3 to 5 years, even if you have a trust, is just make sure all your stuff, your beneficiary designations line up. You've got things owned by the trust. Everything needs to flow through the trust. So just, the funding is just as equally as important as the creation of the plan.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you would like to create a trust and you would like our help at the Rutkowski Law Firm, please dial the number below. We are here to help you. And if you have any further questions on how to get your trust up and running and you're not quite sure how to get started, but maybe you're in a different state or you just feel free to drop questions below. We'd be happy to help. Thank you all so much, Mike. As always, we appreciate you and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me.